It's the longest one. Hello. There we
Hey,
go.
This is a terrible idea.
It is, but it was your idea.
Was it?
It was, but it was going to be much worse than what it is now. Hey, Jen, how you doing? This is so. This. I'm gonna be starting it off. I'm gonna be reading the prologue, and then Van is gonna read in the first chapter. I only have to read 3 pages, so I'm golden.
You're so hot and flustered already, Noah. I don't know why.
No clue as to why. Are you ready?
No.
No.
Should we tell people a little bit about the book?
Actually, that's a very good idea. Go on. Because you found this book.
Did I?
You found... Well, no, I found it, and then you found it, and then we talked about it, then you got it, and then I had to get it.
Okay. So, this is, I believe, a lesbian romance. Basically, if a D&D adventurer decided to open a pub. Yeah, I could read that, but...
No, yeah, I was doing that so they could see that the picture that we have in the background is actual, like, part of the book.
Yeah, Noah is very excited by the arc.
Yeah, I am.
The noises earlier were just spectacular.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
So, yeah, so this follows Viv the Orc Barbarian opening up shop in the city of Thune.
Oh, God, words.
So, and something becomes deeper than she could have ever imagined.
Where does it say that?
I paraphrased the entire synopsis.
Oh!
I just pulled like 4 words out of it and went for that.
Good job.
Because I'm a professional.
With all the syllables.
I mean, some of them. Maybe not all of them. Right, I'm actually going to disappear that because it's distracting me. Okay.
Right.
So,
you need to be more central. Yeah, keep going. Keep going. Lower the camera a bit as well.
I'm not lowering the camera.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I will read the prologue then. Mad voice.
Remember, English.
I could... Why? Just redeemed Lose the Glasses.
Yeah, so I have the I do have the chat up.
Okay. Well, so this is gonna go well. Give me my eyesight's fucking awful. Okay. Wait, I need a timer. Oh, and there's a fart. Thank you. And it was by you as well.
Yep, because I'm not streaming, so my sounds aren't on.
You're mean.
Right. Do you need a timer? How long is your timer for?
5 minutes.
Oh, it won't take you that long.
That's true. Okay, I'll just do these 3 pages. Are we ready? You're so
Go on.
Viv. Oh. Do it again.
Prologue.
Viv buried her greatsword in the... I can't read without my glasses. Scalvert skull with a meaty crunch. Black blood thrums in her hands, and her muscular arm strained as she tore it back and out in a spray of gore. The Scalvert queen gave a long, vibrating moan, ... and then thundered to the stone in a heap. With a sigh, Viv slumped to her knees. The persistent twinge in her lower back flared up, and she dug in the knuckles of one huge hand to chase it away. Wiping sweat and blood from her face, she stared down at the dead queen. Cheers and shouts echoed from behind her. She leaned closer. She leaned closer, yet there it was, right above the nasal cavity. The beast's head was twice as wide as she was, all improbable teeth, this is really difficult, and uncountable eyes, with a huge underslung jaw, and in the middle, the fleshy seam she'd read about. That sounds absolutely awful, I'm sorry.
Word you were after was improbable, by the way, not improbable.
I can't see without my glasses right, that's my excuse. Jamming her fingers into the fold. Oh no. no! Jamming her fingers into the fold, she...
You're still on page 1.
I
and you're already
know!
having a breakdown.
I know. She pried it open. A sickly golden light spilled out. Viv slid her whole hand into the pocket of flesh, curled her fist around a... I don't know what that says. Organic lump and yanked.
Faceted.
Whatever. She pulled on a lump and yanked. It came free with a vibracious ripping sound. Okay, we're on the second page.
Fibrous.
That's what I said. I totally said that. This is difficult. Fennis moved to stand behind her. She could smell his perfume. Is that it then? He asked, only a little interested. Yep. Viv groaned as she hoisted herself to her feet, using black blood as a crutch. Oh, black blood is what the sword's called. Got it. Without bothering to clean the stone, she stuffed it into a pouch on her Why do we have not glasses? What? Wait, what was... Bandolier, yeah. Then propped the great sword on her shoulder. And that's truly all you want? Fennis squinted up at her. His long, beautiful face was amused. He gestured at the walls of the cavern where the Skalvert Queen had entombed untold wealth within sheets of hardened saliva. Wagons, chests, and the bones of horses and men hung suspended amidst gold, silver, and gemstones, the shiny castaways of centuries. Yep, she said again. We're square. The rest of the party approached. Rune, Tyvus, and little... What is that? Galena? Galena!
Yeah, we'll say Galena.
Okay, sweet. Brought with them the exhausted but exultant.
I'll be honest, I've not been paying attention to where you're up to.
That's fine. Chatter of the victorious. It's too late now.
Exhausted and exultant.
That's totally what I said. Rune combed muck from his beard. Galena sheathed her daggers, and Tyvus glided behind them both, tall and watchful. They were a good crew. Viv turned away and strode towards the cavern's entrance, where dim light still filtered through. Where are you going? Hollered Rune, in his rough, affable voice. Out. But aren't you gonna... began Galena. Someone shushed her, most likely Fennis. Viv felt a prick of shame. She liked Galena the most, and probably should have taken the time to explain, but she was done. Why drag things out? She didn't really want to talk about it, and if she said anything more, she might change her mind. After 22 years of adventuring, Viv have reached her limit of blood and mud and bullshit. An orc's life was strength and violence and a sudden sharp end, but she'd be damned if she'd let hers finish that way. It was time for something new. Your turn, chapter 1.
I just have to say, if she's been adventuring for 22 years,
She's level 20.
that will realistically mean she's probably just touching 40. I want to know what blood she's using in her skincare routine based on the artwork.
I mean, you got to point. No, she's going to be younger than that. She's got to be at least 30.
Wait, so she started at 10?
It's at least 15. I think they start young.
Older than you.
Yeah. Still tap.
Okay.
Go on, it's your turn.
Oh, this is going to go badly.
Oh, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Viv stood in the morning chill, looking down into the broad valley below. The city of Thune bristled up from a bed of fog that hazed the banks of the river, bisecting it. Here and there, a copper-clad steeple flashed in the sun. She had broken camp in the pedestrian dark, and her long legs had eaten up the final few miles. Black blood weighed heavy on her back. The Skalvert stone tucked in one of her inner jacket pockets. She could feel it like a hard, withered apple, and reflectively touched it through the cloth from time to time. Reassure herself it was still there. I just missed a word out, never mind.
That's fine. Still good.
A leather satchel hung over one shoulder, stuffed mostly with notes and plans, a few chunks of hardtack, a purse of platinum chits, and assorted precious stones, and one small, curious device. She followed the road down and into the valley as the fog burned away, and a lonely farmer's cart tottered by, stuffed with alfalfa. I really wish you'd have got that word.
I know what alfalfa is. I used to be.
Yeah, I just get the impression you wouldn't know how to finish saying it.
Alfalfa.
Also, I just need to point out, Noah's picked the one that was 3 pages and then said you can read the next 13.
Yeah.
Just so we know.
I'm a lovely person.
That's one word for you. Viv felt a rising sense of nervous elation. Something she hadn't felt in years, like a battle cry she could barely hold in. Hold in. She'd never prepared as much for any one moment. She'd read and questioned, researched and wrestled, and Thune had been the city she'd chosen. When she'd crossed every other location off her list, she'd been absolutely positive. Suddenly, that conviction seemed foolish and impulsive, yet her excitement remained undimmed. No outer wall surrounded Thune. No, it hadn't. It had sprawled far beyond its original fortified boundaries. But she sensed herself approaching the edge of something. It had been ages since she'd stayed in one place more than a handful of nights. The duration of a job. Now she was going to put down roots in a city she'd visited maybe 3 times in her entire life. She stopped and looked around. Here we go. Here's where the letter R becomes my enemy. I looked around warily, as though the road wasn't entirely vacant. The farmer long had gone into the mist, withdrawing a scrap of parchment from her satchel. She read the words she'd copied. Oh, Jesus. Well nigh to thermotic line, the Scalvert stone of fire, draws the ring of fortune, aspect of heart's desire. Viv tucked it carefully away again, exchanging it for the device she'd purchased a week before from a Thormist scholar in Arvine, a witching rod. The small wooden spindle was wrapped in copper thread, which covered the runes inscribed along its length. A wishbone of ash was fitted over the top and into a groove so it spun freely. She held it in her fist, feeling the copper thread absorb the warmth of her palm. The spindle gave a barely perceptible tug. At last she was fairly certain it was a tug, at least, not at last. During the Thormist demonstration, there had been a stronger pull. Viv pushed down the sudden thought that it had all been a parlour trick. As a rule, folks with a fixed address avoided swindling an orc twice their height, who could snap a wrist if they shook hands too firmly. She took a deep breath and strode into Thune, with the witching rod before her. Thune's wakeful noises rose as she moved further into the city. At the outskirts, the buildings had been mostly wooden, with some riverstone foundations interspersed.
That's
I was
weak
I
in
was close
English.
the first time. The deeper she ventured, the more stone prevailed, as though the city had calcified as it aged. Muddy dirt gave way to a smattering of stone lanes, then cobbles near the city's core. Temples and taverns huddled around squares featuring statues of people who probably used to be important. See you later, Summer. Well, I'll see you in the morning, Summer, actually.
See you,
to be
Summer.
fair. Any doubts about the witching rod had evaporated. It definitely pulled now, like a living thing, brief twitches growing into insistent tugs. Her research hadn't been in vain. Ley lines were clearly threaded beneath the city, powerful avenues of thormic energy. Scholars debated whether they grew where people settled or gathered folk near like warmth in winter. What mattered to Viv was that they were here. Finding a potent ley line was only the start, of course. The little wishbone of ash wood twitched left and right, tugging one way for a time before reversing and pulling like a fish on a hook in another direction. After a while, she didn't have to look at it. The feel of it was enough. And Viv paid more attention to the buildings she passed. The device ushered her down the major thoroughfares, through the squiggling alleys that stitched them together, past blacksmiths and hostels and markets and inns. There were few people her height on the streets, and she never found herself crowded. Blackblood tended to have that effect. She passed through all the layers of smell that made up a city. Baking bread and waking horses and wet stone and hot metal and floral perfume and old shit. The same smells you found in any city, but underneath them, the morning scent of the river. Sometimes between the buildings, she could see the blades of the water wheel at the flour mill. Just a side point, if this is a medieval city, right, the smell of the river would be truly disgusting.
It would be stagnant, really, wouldn't it?
Not stagnant, because that's water that doesn't move, and a river does move.
What? Yeah, there's a trickle.
It's thick enough to nearly be considered a solid. Anyway, Viv let the rod lead her where it wanted. A few times the tug was so strong she stopped and inspected the buildings nearby, but disappointed she'd continue onward. The rod would resist for a while until it seemed to give up finding a new direction in which to surge.
It's so sexual. I'm sorry.
Aren't you really glad I didn't go for the other voice?
Yes.
At last, when it yanked hard, she came to a semi-dazed stop and found what she needed. Not on the high street. That would have been too much to hope for. But it was only one removed. Kerosene street lamps dotted the length, extinguished now. And like as not, you wouldn't be knifed there after dark. The buildings on Redstone showed their age, but the roofs seemed in good repair. Would that be roofs? All except one in particular, and here the witching rod drew her closer. It was small for what it was. A battered sign hung from the single remaining iron eye hook. Parkin's livery. The paint of the embossed letters long since flaked away. There were two large iron-bound wooden doors, but they were ajar, and the crossbeam was leaning against the wall nearby. Another, smaller orc-sized door was amusingly padlocked to the left of it.
What is a smaller orc-sized door? Like, is there another door is that human size?
Well, no, it's a double door. So you have a big double door. Because it's a livery. A livery is where you keep horses.
Oh, is that what that is? I thought it was like where you could just go buy like general goods.
For horses, maybe. It did say livery, didn't it? I think it said livery.
It did.
Yeah. So basically, she's looked at the big double doors that would fit a horse through, and then thought, I don't need that big a door. Even with her muscular shoulders.
They are pretty muscular, aren't they?
I'm not even going to make the comment.
Anyway, go on.
Viv ducked her head in for a look. Light filtered from a hole in the roof above, and a handful of clay shingles lay shattered across the broad alleyway leading between 6 horse stalls. A ladder of dubious sturdiness led to a loft, and to the left a small office with a back room. The sour smell of mouldering hay came from the trough at the back. Dust swirled in beams of light, as though it never settled. It was as perfect as she could hope for. Obviously, has low expectations. She tucks the witching rod away. When she re-emerged into the growing traffic of the street, she spied a knobbly old woman sweeping the stoop across the way even. Viv was pretty sure she'd been sweeping since her arrival. The threshold no doubt sparkled at this point, but she continued to attack it with determination, shooting Viv a surreptitious look every other second. Viv strode across the street. The old woman had the good grace to appear surprised, mustering something, approaching a smile as she did. "Do you know who owns this place?" asked Viv, pointing back at the livery. The woman was less than half her height, and had to crane to make eye contact. It's like you know her. Her eyes...
Rude! I'm average height at 5'5".
And a quarter. Her eyes disappeared as she compressed her face into a considering tangle of wrinkles.
Sounds like you.
The livery? Yep. Well, she dragged the word out thoughtfully, but Viv could tell there was nothing wrong with her memory. That's old Ansem, if I recollect properly. Never had much of a head for business, that man. Not for trade, nor husband's work. Never to hear his old lady tell it. Viv didn't miss the woman's suggestive pump of the eyebrows. Not parking? Nope, 'twas too cheap to change the sign when he bought it. Viv's smile was amused. Her lower fangs prominent. Any idea where I can find him? Couldn't say for certain, but I imagine attending to the only work he ever failed at. She tipped her free hand, bringing an imaginary tankard to her lips. If you really want to find him, I'd try the places on Rawbone Alley. Head about 6 over, she gestured to the south. At this time in the morning? Oh, this business he's serious about. Thanks, miss, said Viv. Oh, miss is it? Cackled the woman. You can't call me Laney. You're planning to be my new neighbour. Don't know what the hell that was. She made a...
It was very good.
It was terrible.
It was very good.
Viv, said Laney, nodding. I guess we'll see, depending on whether he's as bad a businessman as you say. The old woman was still laughing at Viv, as Viv left for Rawbone Alley.
You've got so many pages left.
That's
what I was looking at. I just went through and I was like, it's like so many more pages. Do you want me to take over for this bit?
No, I'm committed now. No matter what Laney said, Viv didn't really expect to find the much maligned Ansem at this time of day. She figured she'd ask after him in any swill joints with an open door, and once she knew his haunts, track him down after the day wore on. Turned out she only needed 3 stops before she found him in residence. The tavern keeper looked her up and down after she asked, raised his eyebrows pointedly at Blackblood's hilt over her shoulder. No trouble from me, just business, she said evenly. She tried to look less imposing. Apparently satisfied that she wasn't spoiling for a fight, he cocked a thumb at the corner and went back to swabbing the grime of the bar top into new and more interesting locations. As Viv approached the table, she got the overwhelming impression that she was entering the den of some elderly woodland beast. A badger, perhaps. Not a dangerous sense, but the feeling of a place where he spent so much time that it had absorbed his smell and became eventually his. He even looked like a badger. A big, greasy, black beard striped with white tangled across his chest, as wide as he was tall. He occupied so much space between the wall and the table that when he inhaled deeply, the thing rocked up on its legs. You Ansem? Asked Viv. Ansem allowed that he was. Mind if I sit? She asked, and then sat anyway, leaning Blackblood against the back of the chair. Truth be told, she wasn't really accustomed to asking for permission. Sounds like someone I know.
Who?
Me. I'm just... Ansem stared at her over puffy lower lids. Not hostile, but hostile?
What is hostile?
Hostile, but wary. A tankard sat before him nearly empty. Viv caught the tavern keeper's attention and gestured at it, and Ansem brightened considerably. Much obliged, he muttered. I hear you own the old livery on Redstone. That true? Asked Viv. Ansem allowed that he did. I'm looking to buy, she said, and I have a feeling you might be looking to sell. Ansem seemed surprised, but only briefly. His gaze sharpened, and while he might not have a head for business, Viv was pretty sure he had one for haggling. Maybe, he rumbled. But that's some prime real estate. Prime! I've had offers before, but most of them don't see past the place to really appreciate the value of the location. That is to say, they underbid. At this point,
All
sorry.
right.
Yeah. At this point, the tavern keeper swapped his tankard for a fresh one, and Ansem visibly warmed to his subject. Oh, yes. So many embarrassing offers. I have to warn you. I know what that lot is worth, and I can't see myself selling to anyone but a serious businesswoman, he amended. Viv flashed her toothy and amused grin, thinking of Lainey. Well, Ansem, there's all kinds of business. Very conscious of black blood leaning behind her, she thought of how easy her business, her old business, would have made this negotiation. But I can say for sure that when I do business of any kind, I'm always serious. She reached for her satchel, removed the purse of platinum chits, and hefted it. Withdrawing just one, she held it between thumb and forefinger, inspecting it and letting it catch the light. Platinum was a currency hardly ever seen in a place like this, and she'd need to exchange it for lower denominations soon. But she'd wanted some on hand for just this sort of moment. Ansem's eyes widened. Oh, serious. Yes, serious indeed. He took a long pull of his beer to cover his surprise. Sly dog, thought Viv, trying not to smirk. As one serious business person to another, I don't want to waste your time. Viv leaned on an elbow and slid 8 platinum chits across the table. That's probably 80 gold sovereigns. I think that covers the value of the lot. I'm sure we can agree that the building is a loss. And I think the odds of another businesswoman tracking you down to pay cash on the barrel head is vanishing. She held his gaze. He still had the tankard to his mouth, but he wasn't swallowing. Viv began to withdraw the chits, and he hurriedly reached out, pulling up short before touching her much larger hand. She raised her eyebrows. I can see you've got a keen eye for value, Ansem blinked rapidly. I do. If you want to take a moment this morning to bring the deed and sign it over, I'll wait here. But I won't wait longer than noon. Turned out the old badger was a lot nimbler than he looked. As Viv made her mark on the deed and pocketed the keys, Ansem scooped the platinum into his purse, looking relieved the deal was complete. So I didn't figure you to be interested in livery work, he ventured. It was common knowledge that horses didn't like orcs much. I'm not. I'm opening a coffee shop. Ansem looked nonplussed. But why would you buy a horse stable for that? Viv didn't answer for a moment, but then she stared hard at him. Things don't have to stay as they started out as. She folded the deed and tucked it into her satchel. As she left, Ansem hollered after her. Oh, and hey, what in the 8 hells is coffee? Poor man. Viv had 3 more stops to make before returning to the livery. The exchange at the trade depot put some copper, silver, and gold in her purse, and she was off to oh Jesus, off the
What the fuck is that word?
Athenium.
What is that?
I presume it's some sort of magic shop or library. Athenium. That's what it is now.
Okay.
At the small Thormic University on the north bank of the river. She'd wanted to know the location anyway, in case she needed to do any reading.
Oh, you're right. Oh, I'm so impressed that you knew that.
I didn't, it was a guess.
It was a good guess.
But Athena was the god of learning, amongst other things, in Greece. So
that is true, actually. You have a point there.
More importantly, the territorial post ran between the scattered Atheniums and libraries in most major cities, and it was dependable. Those those copper-clad steeples she'd seen made it easy to locate. Seated at one of the big tables between the shelves, she wrote 2 letters, using a few sheets of her parchment. The smell of paper and dust and time put her in mind of all the reading she'd done in places just like this. A lifetime of training her muscles and her reflexes and her hardness of mind traded for reading and planning and amassing details. She smiled ruefully as she wrote. The gnome at the post counter couldn't stop goggling at her as she stamped the wax seal. The woman had to take the address twice. She was so flustered at seeing an orc in the building. I'm looking for a locksmith. Know of anyone reputable? The gnome's mouth hung open a moment longer, but she recovered herself, flipped through a directory behind the counter. Mark Evans' Sons, she replied. 827 Mason's Lane. She gave some sketchy directions. Viv thanked her and left. Mark Evans' Sons was there as advertised. A silver and 3 coppers lighter, she left with an enormous and quite heavy strongbox under one muscular arm. Back at Parkin's livery as the sun set, Viv unlocked the office door, rebarred the stable doors, and hauled the strongbox behind an L-shaped counter in the office. She stowed the deed and her funds inside, locking it and strung the key around her neck. Now, I'm going to make a prediction right here.
Mm.
The tiefling who is in the artwork tries to steal the key. I'm just going to assume that.
Okay.
We'll see if I'm right. After some testing with her feet and fingertips, she found a loose flagstone in the main pathway between the stalls and flexing mightily, leaving it up and out. She scooped the earth from beneath and then carefully placed the scalvert stone in the hollow, covering it with the dirt. She replaced the flagstone and took a stiff and shedding stable broom to the area to ensure it looked undisturbed. She stared down at it for a few moments. All her hopes centered on this small stone, buried like a secret heart in Parkin's livery. No, not a livery anymore. This place was Viv's. She looked around. Her place. Not a temporary spot, or a spot to sling her bedroll for one night. Hers. The brisk evening air swirled through the hole in the roof, so for tonight at least it would probably feel like any other night under the stars. Viv glanced at the loft and the ladder leading to it. She tested one of the lower rungs with a foot, and it shattered like balsa. She snorted, unstrapped black blood, and with both hands tossed it into the loft, startling a bunch of pigeons that escaped through the roof. Gazing after it for a moment, she then unfurled her bedroll in one of the stalls. There'd certainly been no campfire, and there were no lanterns to speak of, but that was all right. In the dimming light, she surveyed the interior amidst horse apples of antiquity and the dust of neglect. She didn't know much about buildings, but it was clear that this one needed an unbelievable amount of work. But at the end of it, something she built up rather than cut down. It was ridiculous, of course. A coffee shop in a city where nobody even knew what coffee was. Until 6 months ago, she'd never heard of it, never smelled or tasted it. On the face of it, the whole endeavour was ludicrous. She smiled in the dark. When at last she lay back on her bedroll, she started to list her tasks for the following day. But didn't make it past the 3rd. She slept like the dead. You have 10 pages on your next one, just so you know.
Very good reading voice, though.
It is when
you
I
have a
remember how
very
to read.
soothing. Well, they shouldn't make up words in this, so
What,
not our fault.
What was that about my voice?
Very soothing when you read.
What were you saying?
It's very soothing when you read.
Okay. Off you go. It's your turn.
Do you like that one? Stop.
And now Noah's going to stop blushing.
Stop. All right.
I'm going to drink my coffee.
All right.
Because coffee at 11:15 is a great idea.
It's such a great idea. Right. Okay, so chapter 2. Oh my god. Already. Viv woke in the pre-dawn indigo to the growing murmur of the city outside. The pigeons cooed in the loft. Cooed. Where they returned to their nest. She rose and checked on the flagstone above the Scalvert stone, undisturbed, of course. Gathering a few things, she slipped into the street, chewing the last of her hardtack and inhaling the moist morning scent of the shadows given away to sun. Moist. She felt limber and coiled, like she was up on her toes, ready to break into a sprint. Across the street, Lainey had swapped her broom for a bowl of peas and sat on a three-legged stool, shelling them. They traded amiable nods, that's the right word, and then Viv locked up and left in the direction of the river. She found herself humming as she walked. In the receding morning fog, Viv made her way to the shipyards clinging to the bank of the river. The place was alive with the clatter of hammers and saws, shouts muffled by the mist. What she wanted was fixed in her mind, but she didn't expect to find it right away. She could be patient, though. In her experience, you had to be. After long hours spent, oh my god, reconnoitering.
Reconnoitering.
That's totally what I said.
You weren't far off, to be fair.
Ah, thank you. Or staking out a beast's lair. Viv had made peace with the passage of time. She brought some apples from a ratkin urchin, hawking them from a burlap sack. Found a stack of crates out of the way and settled... Oh no, yeah, found a stack of crates out of the way and settled in to observe. The boats here weren't large, mostly keel boats and little fishing boats best suited to the river. A dozen or so were up on a long quay? Quay! A long quay! There we go. Quay. I knew what I meant. Attended by small
Quay
knots.
sounds better.
Quay sounds better. It's quay.
No, quay sounds better. They should be called quays from now
I know,
on.
but I just think of Wales, so it's quay. Because there's new quay and it's spelt like that.
Yeah, I know, quay's the right word.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
saying quay sounds better.
Oh, okay, I thought it was. Attended by stone knots of shipwrights being scraped or tarred or repaired, she watched them as they worked, keeping an eye out for what she wanted. Crews ebbed and swelled as the morning progressed. Viv was on her last apple when she found what she'd been looking for. Most of the crews worked in 2s and 3s. Big men with big voices, scrambling over the hulls and hollering to one another as they did. A few hours on, though, a man of smaller stature appeared, holding a wooden box of tools half as large as himself. His ears were long, body wiry, I don't know, skin leathery and olive, with the flat cap pulled low over his brow. You didn't see hobs often in cities. Humans despairingly called them pucks and shunned them, so they liked to keep to themselves. Viv could relate, but she was more difficult to intimidate. He laboured alone at a small dinghy, while shipwrights and dockwaters alike avoided him. She watched his diligent, fastidious work.
Fastidious.
That's totally what I said. Viv was no woodworker, but she could appreciate craft. His tools were...
Meticulously.
Thank you. Oh yeah, it is that word. Organised, don't smile. Organised, sharp and well cared for. There was a delicate economy.
Economy.
That's what I said.
Economy.
That's what I said, isn't it? What did I say? Yeah.
Economy.
That's what I said.
Economy.
That's what I said.
I'm still spilling coffee everywhere. Thanks.
It's alright.
We've only got another 300 pages to go.
Oh, this is good. Economy to his every motion as he used drawing knife and plane and other things she didn't recognize the shape and knew. Gunwale. She polished off her apple and watched him at his work, trying not to be too conspicuous about it.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, there you are. I'd lost track.
That's fine. Lurking was a well-used part of his skill set, after all. It was noon when he tidily replaced his tools and unwrapped a lunch from his toolbox, and Viv approached. He squinted up at her from under his cap, but said nothing as she loomed over him. "It's nice work," said Viv. "At least I expected it. I don't know much about boats," she admitted. "I expect that dulls the compliment a touch then," he replied. What?
No, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the comment.
Oh, right, because it dulls the compliment a touch. Then I love that you laughed at that. I was just like, okay.
I'm thinking I want to turn the bar that we've got in your D&D game into a coffee shop right now.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean, it is your shop.
Oh, it's not mine. Anyway.
Dulls the compliment a touch then, he replied, his voice dry and deeper than she expected. She laughed, then looked up and down the quay. I meant to say quay then. Oh, God. Not many here that do the work alone. Nope. You get a lot of work. He shrugged. Enough. Enough so you wouldn't like to have a lot more. He removed his cap then, and his look was more speculative?
Yeah, I don't know where you are. Yeah, speculative.
Yeah. Okay. I like how I question it and I wait for you to find it and then agree.
Yeah, stop paying attention to where you are in the book. I'm assuming you'll just stop when it's my turn to start reading again.
Yeah, pretty much. For someone who didn't know much about boats, seems odd you're expecting to need some shipwriting. Viv dropped to her haunches. Haunches? Tired, oh god, yeah, tired of towering over him. Well, you're right, I don't, but wood's wood and craft's craft. I watched you work. Live long enough, you realise some folks can be handed a problem and some tools, and they'll sort it out. And I never think twice about hiring that sort of fellow. Although she reflected, the tools and fellows had been historically a lot larger and a lot bloodier. He began again. I'm Viv, she held out a hand. Calamity! His own callous paw was swallowed by hers. Her eyes widened. Hobname, he said. You can call me Cal. What is it?
I would never hire someone called Calamity.
I wouldn't either, to be honest. But then again, in your party, you've got someone called Chaos/KO.
Well, yes. But I'm also in the party, so that acts as a distraction while I cause all the
That is true.
panic.
That is true. Whichever you like best, I don't need your name to suit me. Cal's fine. The other's too much a mouthful. He folded the linen back over his lunch, and she now felt that she had his full attention. So this work, that a here and now sort of prospect, or he flapped his hand at some vaporous future, sorry. Here and now, well paid, and with the supplies you asked for, not the ones I choose for you. She withdrew her purse, opened it, removed a gold sovereign, and extended it to him. Cal held out his hands as though to catch a toss, but she deliberately placed it in one palm. He pursed his lips and bounced it in his hand. So, why me exactly? He made to hand the coin back to her, but she declined. Like I said, I watched you work. Sharp tools. You clean as you go. Your mind's on your business. She looked around at the conspicuous absence of men nearby. And you do it even when some might say it's wiser not to. So you want me for my lack of wisdom, eh? And in boats you want built, what exactly have you got in mind? I think I have to show you. Rack and ruin, Cal swore under his breath. He removed his cap to tuck it into the top of his breeches. Breeches are the right? Do they have the
Don't do that. Yes, breeches.
Okay.
Is...
I originally thought
that's overalls you're thinking of.
No,
means...
the suspender things, but they're not suspenders. They're breeches. Overalls. Suspenders are for like your legs on ladies.
I didn't say suspenders.
I said breeches.
Yeah, breeches are pants.
Oh no. Okay. They stood outside Parkin's livery.
I'm going to double check that I'm right while you carry on reading.
The stable doors thrown wide and Viv experienced a momentary twist of uneasiness. Don't know much about roofing, he said as he peered up at the hole. But you can figure it out. He replied, and what Viv was coming to understand was an affirmative. He walked slowly around the interior, kicking at the store panels, stomping on the flagstones. Viv tensed when he walked over the one above the Scalvert stone. He peered back at her. How many are you planning to hire? You have someone you'd like to work with? I'm not opposed. Other than that, I'm a ready pair of hands, and I don't tire easy. She held them up in demonstration. It's not. What is it? A livery or livery? Whatever. What
Livery.
Livery. So I was right. Okay. I'm wanting though. No. Ever hear of coffee? He shook his head. Why has no one ever heard of coffee?
I mean, to be fair, we hadn't heard of coffee until like the 1600s, when we started stealing it from Mexico and Brazil and so on.
Oh, is that where it's from?
Oh my god!
You like that?
We found coffee and chocolate at a similar period of time. Also, breeches are short pants.
Oh, okay. I thought they were something different. Okay. Anyway. No. Well, I need a restaurant, I guess, for drinks. Oh, she went to her satchel and withdrew a set of sketches and notes. Suddenly she was unaccountably nervous. Viv had never cared much for the judgment of others. It was pretty easy to ignore when you had 3 feet and 6 stone on most of the folks you encountered. Now, though, she worried that this small man would think her a fool. Cal was waiting for her to continue. She found herself rambling. I came across it in Azimuth. Azimuth.
You pronounce it however you wish, and we'll see what sticks.
Oh, okay. The gnomish, the gnomish city out in the East Territory. Gnome was there for a. Well, it doesn't matter what I was there for, but I smelled it first, and I came across the shop. And they made, well, it's like tea, but not like tea. It smells like... She stopped. And it doesn't matter what it smells like. I can't describe it anyway. At any rate, imagine I'm opening a tavern, but with no taps, no kegs, no beer. Just tables, a counter, some room at the back. Here, I did some sketches of the place I saw. There's so many pages. How many do I have left?
You've got the small chapter.
I'm just making sure.
Oh my god.
Oh. She thrust the papers at him and felt colour rising in her cheeks. Ridiculous. He took the pages and examined them, paying careful attention to each, as though he was committing every line to memory. After several agonizing minutes, he returned them. Those your sketches? Not bad. If anything, she flustered hotter. And you're planning to stay here too? He cocked a thumb at the loft. Seems that's suited. Yes. He put his hands up on his hips and stared into the bay where the stall stood. She half expected him to turn in his heel and leave, but now she was beginning to think she might have chosen just right. So, he walked around the space again. Seems you could keep the stalls, custom down some, tear out the doors, box it in along the walls for benches, take some long planks, set them up on a trestle in between. Then we got yourself some booths and tables here along the sides. Tear down that wall into the office. The counter might do. Need to check for rot. He kicked at the splintered wood from the ladder and raised his eyebrow at her. Gonna need a new ladder. Couple of bags of nails. Whitewash paint. English is hard. Clay tiles. Some riverstone. Bags of lime. Might want a few more windows in the place. And a lot of lumber. So you'll do it? He gave her another one of his long, speculative looks. What'd you say? I do things when it seems wiser not to. Well, if you're helping, I guess so. Give me some of that parchment and a stylus, if you've got it. We're going to need a list, a long list. Tomorrow we can see about getting the orders filled and how much, I hate you, flatter we can make that purse of yours. For the first time since she'd met him, he offered a thin little smile. Not gonna ask how much it'll cost? You figure you even know yet? Don't suppose I do. Well then, Viv dragged an old tack grate away from the wall, blew away the dust and handed him a stylus. They bent over the parchment together as Cal started writing. This is really hard, I've decided.
It was your idea.
I don't think we should do a chapter yet. I think we should do like every other page each.
What? Now we've hit that Neil's read the oh god, I'm breaking my table. The thing.
Yep.
I need a footstool. Oh, I've got a footstool.
Look
Carry
at
on.
you. Cal left in the
Oh.
late after. Yeah.
Nothing. I was going to make a horrible comment about you being small. Carry on.
Mean. Okay. Cal left in the late afternoon to complete his work on the thingy.
Dingy.
Got it. Promising to return in the morning, Viv tucked away the materials list and then stood in the hush of the livery, where the low noise outside seemed hardly to intrude. She looked out the doors and across to Laney's porch, but found it empty. She suddenly felt very alone, which was odd. Viv has spent plenty of time with no company to speak of. Long treks, lonely campgrounds, cold tents, dripping caves. But in a city, she was almost never alone. One of her crew would have been with her. Now in this city, filled with people of all races and backgrounds, the solitude was terrible. She knew 3 people by name. None of them were really more than an acquaintance, although Lainey seemed friendly at least. And Cal was strangely calming to be around. She looked up and headed towards the main thoroughfare.
She what up?
She locked up. What did I say?
Looked.
Oh, my bad. She locked up and headed towards the main thoroughfare, pointedly away from Rawbone Alley. You feel you need company? Well, fine. Here we are. New place, new home. We're good this time. Viv found the brightest, loudest establishment she could. A restaurant and pub that seemed to do business, with no staggering drunks in the street out front and no puddles of piss to step over. She ducked under the lintel, nearly, and entered, and there was a momentary drop in the conversational volume. But Thune was pretty cosmopolitan?
Cosmopolitan. You got close.
I got there. English is hard. I know what it is, but saying it is a whole different thing. Shut up.
What? I've had conversations with you. I know how this normally goes.
It's not gonna go well. The orcs weren't unknown, just a little unusual. The noise packed right back up. She took a deep breath and tried to relax her face to a non-threatening expression. Something she'd been practicing. Not hauling a greatsword around and wearing plain clothes hopefully added to the effects. There was a long, clean bar top, sparsely populated, and a mirror on the wall behind. Lanterns blazed through the dining area. Dining area. Dining area? Dining area. It's dining, right?
Yes. No,
okay. It's because... Anyway, it wasn't cold enough for a fire, but the room was still cheerfully lit. Tables were mostly occupied. Viv drew up a stool at the bar top and tried not to fidget. She felt awkward. So many people, so close, and for the first time she wasn't just passing through. It didn't seem that any force pass!
Faux pas.
That's what it said? There's no R, though. An S.
That's because it's French.
Wow. How dare they? Faux pas.
Yes.
Cool. Or stumble here might follow and shame her forever before she'd even properly settle down. Irrational through and through. Through!
Irrational though the thought was, I think is what you were
Why?
trying to say.
They're both the same! Oh, wait, no. One doesn't have a H.
No.
Doesn't have a T at the end. There we go. So fucking... Why would they do this? This is the worst chapter I've ever read.
It's not.
It is!
I mean, if you wanted to switch to the beast.
Point taken. Point
Right.
taken. I take it back. A moon-faced man approached. I'm just sorry, but they're pretty much similar words, just with a single letter missing. I'm not going to get it.
English is a nonsense language.
It really is. A moon-faced man approached, red-cheeked, his ears just a touch pointed, probably a little elf in him, though his girth hinted at a very human metabolism. Evening, ma'am, he said. and slid a chalk slate menu in front of her. Eating or drinking? Eating, she smiled, trying not to bare her lower fangs too much. His expression didn't change a whit. Rapping a knuckle on the slate, he said, "That pork's good. I'll let you think on it." And breezed away. When he returned minutes later, she ordered the pork, and while she waited for her meal, she gazed around, musing. She hadn't dared to think this far ahead before, except in a very abstract way, but with Cal signed up, she allowed herself to dream on it a little. The cafe she'd visited in Azimuth had been the very definition of gnomish, gnomes. Architecture. I can't pronounce it. I need help. I'm having a stroke. I can't pronounce this word. It's one of the words I can't pronounce. Help me, please. Stop laughing at me. I'm trying. So it's like strategy. I can't pronounce that. It's the same sort of system with the word. You've turned your mic.
Architecture.
Architecture. No.
Yeah.
I hate that word. So I hope it doesn't say it again.
It will.
No.
In all your choices.
I hope it doesn't. Precisely fitted well to wall tiles. Oh, I hate this. Geometric shapes and pavers arranged in intricate interlocking patterns. Aha. The furniture had, of course, been gnomish in scale as well. She'd had to stand. She'd known her place would be different, but now she tried to make that real in her head. Oh my god. She looked at the decorations inside the pub. Here an oil painting in an old gilt frame. There a huge ceramic vase, or vase, as some people say. I've got hiccups, I'm sorry. Vase. Whatever.
Heathen.
Like when people call bathrobes house coats.
Dressing gown.
House coat.
No.
House
Dressing
coat.
gown.
House coat.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Vases on the floor with fresh ferns to sweeten the air. A simple chandelier with 3 fat candles, clearly changed regularly with no sloppy wax threads. Viv began to imagine her own place. Brighter, she thought, with that tall barn ceiling. Some light coming in from high windows. She could see what Cal had meant about the booths as well. But maybe another long table down the middle with benches, a kind of community seating. Viv saw it with the big stable doors thrown wide, perhaps a few tables there in this entry to catch the breeze and the sun. The flagstones polished, clean, whitewashed walls. Her thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of her meal, the rich smell of it reaching her first. She discovered that she was ravenous. "Before you go," she said, "I wanted to ask, is this your place?" The half-elf blinked and then smiled a little wider than his regular professional pleasantness. For fuck's sake. "Sure is, 4 years now." "If you don't mind me asking, how'd you get started even?" He leaned on the bar top. "Well, it's not a family business, if that's what you're asking. And my first place sure wasn't here on the high street," chuckled at that. "And was business slow at first, or did they come all at once?" He waved at the room. "Oh my, slow, very slow. Fair to say I lost more money than I could afford to, and then I lost some more. But these days, I lose just enough to get by. You plan to open a pub around here?" Can't say I'd advise it. He winked at her, clearly joking. "Not exactly, but maybe something like it." He seemed surprised, but recovered swiftly. "Well, best of luck to you, ma'am." He spoke behind his hand in a stage whisper. "I'll think you not to take any customers, though, here." "Not much chance of that, I don't think." "Well, that's all right then. Ear up now, or it'll get cold." Oh, eat up now, not ear. Wow. I heard that, by the way.
That's fine.
Viv quietly ate her meal and didn't speak to anyone else. Oh my god. Her mood was I'm having a stroke. Meditative.
There we go.
As she left the pub.
You're doing well.
I'm trying so hard to read out loud. I don't read out loud. She focused on a Chandler's shop? Who the fuck? What? Okay. Still open. Oh! Right,
It's in a
okay.
chandelier
Yeah.
first.
Bought a lantern and returned to the delivery. There she lay awake staring into its flame. The visions of what might someday be were far from the cold and derelict place where she bedded down. Tomorrow, though, the real work would begin. Before we, continue, can I go for it? Can we have a quick little break? Because I need a wee.
Yeah, of course you can.
Sweet, let me go put it on the Death screen very quickly. What do you think so far, though? Before I do.
It's what I expected.
And what is that?
Good.
Right.
I'm waiting for something interesting to happen.
Same. Right.
So
let's be right back. Let's have a quick little break.
Okay. Chapter 3. True to his word, Cal arrived with the dawn. Viv had placed the track. No, we've already started. It's off the rails. The tack crate out front and was sitting and watching the shadows take shape in the morning sun, contemplating how excellently a mug of coffee would suit her. The hob hauled in his box of tools and placed it inside of the big doorway. Are we assuming that a hob is a hobgoblin?
You know how I viewed it as? Hobgoblins are quite small, aren't they?
They can be. It depends on
I'm thinking
what aspect of the law.
I'm thinking in my head, it's like a gnome and dwarf. Like it's somewhere between them sizes.
I think they're a bit.
I view them as Dobby, basically, from this book, with how it's described a little bit.
Don't like Dobby.
You neither.
Morning, he said. He said, but he nodded genially enough. He removed his copy of the materials list from a pocket and unfolded it. Lots to do. Some of this we'll have directly. Some will take time. Viv produced her purse. Her platinum and most of the sovereigns were in the lockbox, but she figured there were sufficient funds to cover what was needed. She tossed it to Cal. I think I can trust you to place the orders if you're willing. Cal looked surprised. He sucked his teeth thoughtfully for a moment before saying, I reckon you'll not get the best prices if I'm the one dickering. That's a choice of words.
Dickering?
Think it'll go better if it's me? Her smile was sardonic. Well, maybe, but it's a wash. And you want to trust me with all of this? Don't fret. I'll stroll away with it. He bounced the purse in his hand. She gave him a long look, and her expression didn't last. No, he said as he took in the size and shape of her. No, I suppose you wouldn't. Viv sighed. I've lived a long time knowing I'm a threat walking. I'd rather that wasn't the shape of it for you. He nodded and tucked the purse away. I'll need some hours. Viv stood and stretched, knuckling the ache in her lower back. It was always stiff in the cold. I need to rent a cart, something to haul the junk with, and some place to haul it. The mill for the cart, said Cal. Figure you can find it. As for the rest, there's a bin out west and off the main road. Cart track hooks south. Thanks.
What does that even mean?
Well, I think isn't a midden a toilet?
Oh, okay.
So, I think, I could be wrong. A dunghill or refuse heap. So, I think she needs to use the facilities. So,
That's
not something you see in books very often.
Yeah, you're correct.
Or video games, on an unrelated side point.
That's true.
Skyrim, looking at you. Think about it, there isn't any. I'll be off then. Cal tipped his cap and ambled back down the street.
Right, that's so weird.
Yeah, there isn't.
Yeah.
There's also no butchers on the side point.
Oh, there's a market.
There's a market, but how do the things get to market?
Traders.
There is nothing anywhere in Skyrim that has meat hooks. other than dungeons. I don't think they're taking the cows into the dungeons. They might be.
Anything's a kink, I guess. I don't know.
Of all the people to say that. Anyway. He was right. The mill was indeed willing to rent her a cart, less a pair of animals, for a full silver, which was certainly more than it was worth. The miller grinned smugly after she paid, no doubt imagining the trouble an orc would face hitching up a horse. But she gripped the traces in both hands, lifted, and easily got the cart moving herself. The miller watched her roll it away, scratching the back of his bald head bemusedly. Viv worked up a healthy sweat and loosened herself up on the trip back. Along the way, she haggled with a stonemason, who had 3 or 4 ladders at a job site. He parted with one for 10 coppers too many, and she tossed it in the back of the cart. She's going to run out of money very quickly.
Mm-hmm. But this is 20 years of adventuring, though, so she's got to have a lot.
I know, but she won't have much once everyone figures out they can overcharge her.
She's not haggled at all, has she?
No, this is what happens when you let a barbarian into a shop.
Hey now, I've always played barbarian. That, you know what, you've got a point there. I can't say shit. I get money. I get stolen from.
Yes, you did. And
by gnomes dressed as orcs.
And you were playing a ranger, not a barbarian. You were meant to be intelligent. Anyway,
I've tried so hard.
Lainey was back on her porch, broom in hand, attacking what Viv had to imagine was the cleanest stoop in the entire territory. She gave her a neighbourly nod and began the hard work of cleaning out the old building. So the midden, she's emptying out all the scrap to take to the midden. That's what she's doing.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Good thinking, Batman.
It quickly became apparent exactly how much junk had accrued in this place. Rotten lumber, horseshoe iron, a set of rusted and bent pitchforks, a baled stack of grain sacks, a crumbling tack, an assortment of saddle blankets thick with mould, and plenty of awkward, cumbersome, and decrepit
miscellany.
Miscellaneous items.
Yeah.
There we go. The office had its own share of debris. Moth-eaten ledgers, shattered inkwells, and an inexplicable sense of winter underclothes gone grey with dust. Viv snapped the broken ladder, threw it in the cart, and set up the new one, and climbed to the loft. Thankfully, there was only a little old hay, the pigeon's nest, and a few scraps of this and that. Black blood lay there in the dust, already gathering some itself. She picked it up, hefted it in her hands for a second, and then leaned it carefully against the slanted ceiling. By noon, the cart was piled high. Filth covered Viv from head to toe, and the livery's interior looked like a sandstorm had passed through, with little dunes and drifts of dirt having resettled after the disturbance. She thought with amusement that she should hire Lainey to broom it out. But when she looked in that direction, the old woman was absent. There was, however, someone else shadowing her own doorway. That's not the right page. Viv's back prickled with a sense she trusted implicitly. It was the reason she was still moving around and breathing after all. Help you with something? She asked, dusting off her hands and thinking about Black Blood leaning up in the loft out of reach. He was dressed stylishly with a ruffled shirt, a vest, and a broad-brimmed hat. But on closer inspection, his clothes were worse for wear, sweat-stained and a little frayed. His skin had the grey cast of one of the stone fae, and his features were sharp. "Oh, no help," he replied. "We like to welcome budding entrepreneurs to the city when we can. I'm powerfully curious about what new business you'll bring to the district." His voice was smooth and almost cultured. I have just broken Noah again.
You sound Welsh.
That's the idea. Viv didn't miss the reference to the nebulous we. "Oh, so you're a city official?" Viv smiled, and this time she didn't concern herself, with how prominent her lower fangs were. She approached him so their difference in stature was even more apparent. She was pretty sure she knew exactly what this man was, and until recently she'd have had him by the throat and off the ground already. He didn't adjust his posture an iota, smiling back. Not as such. I just consider it my civic duty to welcome new arrivals and to take an interest in the welfare. I'll consider myself welcome then. I didn't catch your name. You didn't, but fair exchange is no robbery. Didn't catch yours either. Indeed, I don't suppose you'd mind giving me a little preview of your new... He looked around her at the cart and waved a gloved hand. Venture? Trade secret. Oh, well, I wouldn't want to pry. That went off the rails there, that accent. I'm glad to hear that. Viv walked back, grabbing the traces, and lifted, her biceps bunching as she started hauling.
Ooh.
It was significantly heavier than it had been that morning. Her lower back lit up in a bright knot of pain. She didn't slow as she approached the door, staring grimly past her visitor, who at the last second had to depart the threshold less gracefully than he would have doubtless preferred. We'll catch up later, he called after her as she rumbled the cart down the cobbles to the west. Her face set, breathing hard through her nose. Above, the clouds began to clot and thicken, threatening rain. Everyone else on the street made certain they were clear of the coming storm. When Cal reappeared that afternoon, the sky was even darker. Viv was seated out front on the tack box. The cart returned. Her sleeves were rolled up and sweat striped the grime on her arms. As the hob approached, Viv saw a bundle under his arm, and when he stopped, he flapped a corner of it at her. Tarpaulin! Looks like rain. Best we keep the new lumber dry. He tossed her purse to her, and she tucked it away without bothering to examine it.
What an idiot. Sorry.
Why?
Cal,
Why?
what's been spent? Where's the money going?
That's true. Viv hauled out the ladder and gathered a few stones from an alley. They both climbed onto the roof and anchored the tarp with the stones over the hole, just as raindrops began to speckle the tile a dusty orange. When they were back down and inside, listening to the drops clatter lightly overhead, Cal said, Well, maybe no deliveries today, unless the rain slacks off. He looked around the barren interior. A good job of it, eh? Looks a fair bit bigger now. Viv smiled ruefully as she surveyed the place. The emptiness of it somehow made the work to come more daunting. Think I'm a fool? Cal shrugged. Not in the habit of offering my less than positive thoughts to somebody like you. Somebody like me? She sighed. I mean somebody who's paying. He gave her one of his thin smiles. Well, as the one paying, I don't see a reason for you to wait around here while... She was interrupted by the arrival of a cart with 3 small sturdy crates in the back. That's promptness for you, said Cal. Viv headed out into the rain. That's not the supply, she called over the shoulder. She'd already caught the smell of it. Signing for the delivery, Viv paid the driver and declined his help, hauling the crates one by one into the delivery. Each was tidily assembled, with the sides and base cleverly fitted, and only the top nailed in place. Gnomish stencils ran along the panels at neat right angles. Are you going to knock a star off just because there's so much gnomishness in it?
I'm so tempted. How did you know?
Cal watched curiously as Viv gently settled down the last one, then indicated Cal's toolbox, giving him a questioning look. Have at it, he said. Hefting a pry bar, she levered up the lid, and there inside was a set of muslin sacks. The scent was even stronger now, and Viv shivered in anticipation. Untying one, she dug a hand into it and let the roasted brown beans sift through her fingers.
Oh,
She loved the quiet hiss they made as they fell back into the bag. You're right, not much like tea. Emerging from her reverie, Viv glanced up at him. You can smell it though, can't you? Like roasted nuts and fruit. Cal squinted at her. Thought you said you drank it. Viv nibbled one experimentally, tasting the warm, bitter, dark flavour as it coated her tongue. She felt she needed to explain. They grind it into powder, then run hot water through it. But there's more to it than that. When the machine shows up, I'll show you. God's the smell of it, Cal. This is just a ghost of it. She sat back on the flagstones and rolled the bean between her thumb and forefinger. I told you I came across it in Azimuth. Yes, exactly. And I remember following the smell to the shop. They called it a cafe. People just sat around drinking it from these little ceramic cups, and I had to try it. And it was like drinking the feeling of being peaceful. That is not how coffee works.
Nope. No, it does not. Well, it depends.
No, it doesn't.
It depends.
Coffee is rocket fuel. If it's not rocket fuel, you're doing it wrong.
You have strong fucking coffee, though.
Yes. Being peaceful in your mind. Well, not if you have too much. Then it's something else.
There you go.
A lot of folks allow you feel peaceful after a beer. It's different. I don't know if I can tell you how it is. Well, all right then. His look was not unkind. In the interest of your new business, I guess I'll say I hope folks have the same experience you did. So do I. She retied the sack, took his mallet, and started nailing the crate lid back down again. When she looked up again, Cal was emerging from the office area. He stopped in front of her and stared at the floor ruminatively for a moment, as she was content to wait for what he had to say. Figure you might need a sort of kitchen back there. Stove, maybe a water barrel and some copper pipe, hooks for pans and pots. The water barrel's not a bad idea. I should have thought of that since we'll need water. But a kitchen? What do I need a kitchen for? Well, he said, looking apologetic, if you find nobody wants any of the beans and water, at least you can feed them. As the day drew down, the rain stopped and the city smelled, if not clean, then at least refreshed. It wasn't quite dusk, but Viv took her lantern and her notes out of her tack box, which had cemented its role at the porch bench. Before she could settle in to re-examine them, she spied Lainey across the way, wrapped in a shawl and blowing on a mug of tea. Viv set the lantern on the box, tucked away her notes, and stepped over the drying puddles to join the woman on her porch. Evening, she said. It is, Lainey nodded a delivery. Seems you've been mighty busy, miss. She grinned slyly when she said it. Oh yeah, I suppose so. Sleeped in there, are you? Hope you're locking up at night. It's close to the high street, and I wouldn't like to see you running afoul of something unsavoury after dark. Viv couldn't mask her surprise. As a rule, folks spared little thought for her physical well-being, herself included. She was touched. Don't worry, locked up tight. But speaking of anyone unsavoury, Viv tried to sort out what she wanted to ask. Had a visitor today. Big hat. She held her hands out wide from her head. Fancy shirt, Stone Fay, I think. You know him? Lady snorted and slurped her tea. She said nothing for a long moment, then sighed. One of the madrigals, I reckon. The madrigal? Some kind of local kingpin? Bunch of stray dogs, spat Lainey. The madrigal's got the leash. Her wrinkles bunched tight around her mouth. But the madrigal ain't to be ignored. When they ask you to pay, She gazed sharply at Viv. And they will ask. You'd best bank your coals and pay. I'm not sure I can bring myself to do that, she replied mildly. Lainey patted Viv's considerable forearm. I know you mean to fall to till now, but seemed to me you ain't here to do what you've always done. Am I wrong? The old woman had startled her again. Well, that's true, Viv said. But for all that, not sure I can roll over for a little man in a big hat and a silly shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Lady chuckled darkly. Never mind the man in the hat. The mandrigal's what you want to worry about and nothing silly about them. I'll be careful, said Viv. They stood in companionable silence for a few more minutes, not moments. Viv glanced sidelong at Lainey's mug of tea. Say, had coffee? Lady blinked at her and looked affronted. Why, I never have. And the way I was brought up, Lady doesn't talk about her maladies, she said primly. Viv barked a laugh to the old woman's great annoyance. I wonder what she thought she was being asked there.
I know. What do you think she thought it was?
I don't wish to speculate.
She's an old lady.
Dusty. Viv moved her bedroll and lantern to the loft under the slope of the roof.
Ooh.
The smell of coffee beans filtered up through the cracks in the boards, and she inhaled it deeply like a warm, earthy memory. The tarpaulin thumped like a distant drum in the occasional gust of wind. In the lantern's light, black blood gleamed where it leaned
Keeps
against the
going
wall.
back to black blood.
Reminder of your past. Viv stared at it for a long time and thought about the man in the hat and the madrigal. She felt a sudden impulse to sleep next to the blade, as she had in 100 campsites. And that word. I'm not even going to attempt
I thought that word.
I will look up how to pronounce that in a minute. She deliberately turned away, extinguished the lantern, and filled her lungs with the dark smell from below. On the roof, there was a solid thud, followed by a rhythmic heavy padding and scratching clatter on the tiles, but she was already beginning to doze, and she lost it in the sound of the tarpaulin. Then she was asleep.
Okay. So, clearly there's someone on the roof, right? But also,
Yes.
This is a lot of jargon for building a coffee shop.
I mean, it is, but it's about the journey, I suspect. I will also add it's very well described so far.
It is. It absolutely is. I just wish...
I like the world building so far. I'm not getting much personality, though.
Yeah.
Which we all know what I like. I'm just looking up what this word actually means, because I have never heard this word before.
This is quite a few pages.
Good.
Not good.
Alright, it's pronounced bivouac.
Bivouac. What?
Bivouac.
Bivouac.
Yes, it is a temporary camp without tents or cover, used especially by soldiers or mountaineers.
Oh, okay. Fair dues.
Which, as I am neither a soldier nor a mountaineer, I have never encountered one.
Which is fine.
This body ain't built for exercise.
This body ain't built for shit.
Not anymore. This body's getting old and broken.
We're both old. It's fine.
There's a few years difference, mate.
Not much.
7?
Yeah.
Right, well then, it's plenty. Right, chapter 4?
4.
3?
Yep.
4.
Number 4.
Out of curiosity, how far are we going with this? We've reached page 37 out of 320.
It's up to you.
I'm not in work.
Me neither.
So,
but we're going to shopping tomorrow.
We're going to a shop tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's not the same thing.
Well, your chapter isn't as long as my one. So I say after chapter 5 and we get to chapter 6, then we stop.
Okay.
Because then it's not... Mine's much larger, and I feel like you should read number 4 instead.
For That's fine.
Really? You don't have to. I can do it.
Hang on, let me just... skim
There's a
through this.
lot of...
No, I'm looking for words that might amuse me if you try and read them.
Thanks.
There's one.
Okay.
Oh, maybe, actually. No, I think you should read it.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll take a sip from my drink.
I mean, to be fair, out of 36 pages so far, my first chapter was 16, which is nearly half of it. And then
Okay.
so I think I've read 26 out of 36 pages.
I don't know what you're talking about. No. Anyway, chapter 4.
Chapter 4.
The lumber... The lumber tiles and other supplies came in piecemeal over the next few days. Showers came and... Showers came and went. I guess they mean rain.
Shower.
Yeah, I just didn't expect it after talking about wood. Wood. Showers came and went, then the sky cleared entirely. When it did, Viv and Cal repaired the hole in the roof, shucking old tiles down through the gaps to shatter on the floor. They were surprised at how many of the timbers they had to take up to mend it fully. Cal was just as methodical and mindful about the repair work as she'd hoped. It was a hard 2 days of labour for the both of them, but the roof was fully proof against water again. Next, Cal examined the interior, sounding the boards with a knuckle and several times digging a fistful of dry rotten wood out and shaking his head at it. After 4 days of prying out old timber and nailing in fresh, Viv started to wonder if they might have been better off rebuilding the whole damn thing. She rented the cart from the miller again to haul away the debris.
I hope she got a better price this time around.
Yeah, me too. They built a permanent and sturdier ladder into the loft. Viv was a fast study and a reasonable hand with a hammer and nails.
No great surprise there.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Accurately slinging a slab of metal and striking a target was squarely within the realm of her abilities. When Cal first clambered into the loft and spied black blood, turn the page, glimmering darkly in the corner, he made no comment on it. Cozy, he said instead. Been wanting a... be wanting a bed and dresser, no doubt. No need, said Viv. I'm used to sleeping rough. Used to it the same as ought to, but he pressed no further, and that was that. In the main stable area, they did as Cal suggested, cutting down the stall walls and converting each into a sort of booth. The hob boxed in neat U-benches along the interiors. They pre-assembled tabletops, and Viv easily orc-handled them into place across the dress. It's not manhandled, it's orc-handled.
I like the fact they've done that.
Me too. I can appreciate that. Viv cut 2 high windows into the northern and eastern walls, letting the morning sun crawl down from the loft and into the new dining area.
What did she cut the windows out with?
I'm assuming it's Blackblood, her sword.
I hope so.
That's how I've just imagined it this whole time.
Okay.
They sanded the office counter and added a hinged extension to the end for extra workspace. Cal repurposed some old tack shelves and moved them to the back wall of what Viv now thought of as the storefront. She also managed to replace some cracked panes in the mullioned. Mullioned. Whatever that means. Front window next to the smaller door. Well, doesn't look much like a stable anymore, observed Viv, watching him fit in that bit of glass. Mighty pleased it quit smelling like one too. One afternoon, Viv returned from the Cooper with a water barrel on one shoulder and a few buckets in hand. She took the barrel in the corner, back of the counter. She drew water from the well a few blocks down, and Cal checked for leaks as she filled it. They converted the back room of the office into a pantry with more shelves. Viv consulted her notes and excavated. Jesus. A pit
Jesus
that
has nothing to do with it.
That's true. A pit that she insulated with clay for cold storage. Cal added a neat hinged door. Viv did the ladder work of whitewashing the front, while Cal re-chinked mortar between the river stones low on the walls. When she strode back inside, arming sweat from her forehead and hauling the whitewash bucket, she found him inspecting the flagstones, checking the sand between them. Her eyes went to the resting place of the Scalvert stone, and she had to keep herself from rushing forward to interrupt. "Anything you doing here?" she asked, trying to sound brisk and natural about it. What if he found the stone? Would he recognize it? And so what if he did? It was fair to say. She trusted Cal. Trusted Cal. Jesus Christ. And yet, he looked up. Maybe a little more sand. This one's loose. Might should have... Oh, what? English. Might should take it. What? Might should take it up and pack some underneath. He stomped on the flag she buried the stone under, and her heart leapt. "I'll take care of it," she said, and her smile felt entirely false. Cal didn't seem to notice. He said. And that was that. Later that evening, after glancing up and down the street to reassure herself that the man with the hat wasn't peering in at her, Viv did take up the flagstone. She removed the Scalvert stone and held it in her hand. Warm to the touch, it almost seemed to have a lambent yellow glow. Independent of the light of the lantern, replacing it with care, she scooped fistfuls of dirt to reveal the flagstone. No, not reveal the flagstone and smooth sand into the crevices again. That night she dreamed of the Scalvert Queen. But, oh my god, book closed. But when she drove her hand to its skull to remove the stone, its flesh drew tight around her wrist. As she tried to withdraw her fist, she couldn't, and the flesh firmed, and the Scalvert's many eyes ignited one by one. Like signal fires in the dark, her efforts to free herself grew increasingly frantic, until she startled awake. The nerves in her right arm were alight, her hand tingling with pins and needles. After lying awake for some time, she finally slept again, and by morning she'd forgotten the dream. God. Days passed in a haze of hot work. Aching muscles, slivers. Nearly. Dust and the smells of sweat and lime and fresh cut wood. At the end of 2 weeks, the place looked downright respectable. Viv found herself out in the street a few times a day, hands on her hips, surveying the shop with a rising, warm sense of accomplishment. On one of these occasions, she was startled to find Lainey suddenly beside her. The woman used her broom as a walking stick, leaning her weight on it. Val had no idea how she arrived so silently. "Well, fanciest livery I've ever seen," Lainey said, then nodded and went back to her porch. Unsure why she hadn't done it sooner, Viv set up the ladder and tore down the old Parkins livery sign, tossing it into the rubbish pile with real satisfaction.
Pardon?
Satisfaction. What did I say?
Satisfaction.
What the fuck is that?
It's probably the evolution of the word eventually.
Yeah. Going to need...
Great idea.
What, this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Going to need a new sign, said Cal, his thumbs hooked into the waist of his breeches, staring up at the vacant iron bracket. "You know," said Viv, "I took a lot of notes, figured I'd covered most details, but I never really thought about a sign or a name." She looked down at Cal. "Just never crossed my mind." It was quiet for a minute, then Cal cleared his throat, and in the most hesitant voice she'd ever heard from him, he ventured, "Viv's place?" "Good as any, I suppose," she replied. "I don't have a better idea." He didn't look satisfied. Maybe Viv's coffee? I'll be honest, feels strange having my name on anything like putting your own face on the sign. A pause. Could just say coffee, I suppose. Don't expect there'll be a lot of confusion. Viv squinted hard at him and thought he'd outlast her, but his mouth quirked at the corner. I figure I'll table it for now, she said. Who knows, maybe I'll name it after you. Calamity Coffee has a nice sound to it. Actually, that does actually sound quite good.
I mean, Viva la Coffee works because you still get Viv in there.
That is true. Cal regarded her, sniffed, and then said
Solemnly.
That's what I said. Well, you're not wrong. Later that week, the bulk of the construction was complete. They built a big trestle table and benches ran between the booths. She and Cal stained and oiled them all, swept the floors clean, and set glass in the new high windows. Viv hoisted a chandelier and secured it to a bolt plate Cal set into the wall. As evening drew on, they lit it with a long taper. Both pleased with the glow it cast, the ring shadow pulsing below. At the table, with Viv's notes between them, they discussed some of the finer points of furnishing and rugs, and maybe some reeds to freshen the smell of the place. They both halted their conversation at once. In the doorway stood the man in the hat, with company to boot. They were less well-dressed, motley assortment of men, 2 humans and a dwarf with a cropped beard and clubbed back hair. That's weird. Viv saw at least 2 short swords. I need help. And would have wagered there were at least 6 knives between them, in one cuff or another. Wondered when you'd stop. Oh my god, can you just do voices for me?
No, I don't want to.
It's fine, you have to. Wondered when you'd stop back by, said Viv. She didn't bother to raise. I'm flat. Right, that's what I said?
You said raise.
That's what I said. Will you do his voice at least? Because I can't do Welsh.
I'm trying to remember how the hell I do Welsh.
I don't know.
I'm flattered to have occupied your thought. That's not it.
Yeah, that was
Thoughts,
right.
the man said, stepping across the threshold and surveying the renovations with an appreciative nod. That's Irish, hang on. You've been mighty industrious. The old place has never looked better. Seems you won't be in the business of horseflesh, though.
Biff shrugged. His smile from the last visit let's redo that. His smile from the last visit might never have lapsed in all the intervening days.
Look,
Wait.
I enjoy a witty back and forth as much as the next man, but that's not well. But I appreciate the directness. I'm merely a representative. My friends call me Lack. You can too. This is getting close to Irish. This entire southern quarter is under the watchful and beneficent eye of Madrigal. He sketched a bow as though the Madrigal himself was here to see it.
You think I need a watchful eye? Viv's brows rose.
We all need someone to watch out for us. That's bad Indian, replied Lack.
This is the part where you let me know about the monthly involuntary donation for... What did you call it? A beneficent eye.
Lack cocked a finger at her, and his smile widened.
Well, you've said your piece. Viv casually dismissed him by returning to the study of her notes. Cal hadn't budged in an inch during the entire exchange, his face rigid.
Lack's voice developed an annoyed edge. I'll expect your contribution by the end of the month. 1 sovereign, 2 silvers is the going rate.
What you expect is your business, Viv's reply was mild. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw the what is that there? Heavies behind Lack make a move to approach, which would have been a laughable mistake, but he stopped them with a gesture. There was a heavy silence while Viv waited for a rebuttal. Then Lack and his crew were gone. Cal let out a long breath and shot her a worried glance.
Sorry, I stopped paying attention.
It's fine. It's Cal now. You're Cal.
Right. Am I?
Yeah, you're Cal now.
Listen, you don't want to run afoul of the Madrigal, he said in a powerfully soft voice. When the hob normally spoke, it was always even and solid, like he was laying a brick. The change in him made her look at him seriously.
That's what Lainey said. She put one of her hands on the table and opened it wide. But Cal, I think we have a pretty good idea of what these hands have done. Do you really see... Oh. Wait. That was really good. I was... Oh. When you did it. Oh, that was really loud. These hands have done... Fucking fart noise. Do you really see me bobbing a curtsy to a bunch of men too stupid to know the odds if they were to tangle with me?
I don't doubt you'd lay those four low, no problem. But listen, there's a lot more than four of them out there, and the Madrigal is the sort to make an example.
I've heard a lot of stories and a lot of legends in my time, and they're always worse than the real thing. I can take care of myself here.
Maybe so. This place, though? He raps the table with a knuckle. It ain't fireproof. So fine, you can take care of yourself, but I figure there's more you got at stake. A stake in. Am I wrong?
Viv frowned and stared at him, lost for words. Cal got up. Oh, yeah, that's you, yeah. Go on.
Cal got up, levelled a finger at her and said, "Wait." He rummaged in some of the last remaining supplies and retrieved a hammer and nails. Up on his toes at the wall behind the counter, he banged some brackets into the wood. 1, 2, 3. I'll at least do this. Put that sword of yours up there, he said. If you're going to show him your teeth, I'll at least fix it so that you can bite when you need to.
That's true. True. When Viv retired for the night, black blood rested on those brackets, a killing slab. She wished it all... Oh, she wished it was still hidden in the corner. Viv hadn't expected Cal, but around noon he showed up riding in the back of a cart next to a big black stove and several lengths of stovepipe. She gave him the side eye as he leapt down. What's all this?
He shrugged. I said you needed a kitchen, and before you say anything, it's already paid for.
She tossed up her hands, both amused and exasperated. Oof. The horses shied nervously. Where'd you get this? I'm not a baker.
He gestured at the upper room. Gets cold here in winter. And no fireplace to speak of. You want to freeze up there in the loft, laying on the floor, snow on the roof. Give me a hand with this.
Viv held her peace. As she hefted the stove out of the bed of the wagon. One end at a time, even for her, the heavy iron thing was difficult to maneuver. She eventually got it down and walked it end by end to the storefront by the way of the big doors. Cal carried in the stovepipe piece by piece and then paid the impatient driver. She was surprised to find that she was a little winded. Her back was gnawing at her again too as she fell onto one of the benches. Can't let you pay for it, Cal.
Too bad. Already paid me too much. Figured if I was going to waste it on something foolish, this might as well be it.
Keep for winter, huh?
Al nodded. And if the bean water doesn't work out?
Viv laughed. Speaking of that, she gestured to the counter where a mortar...
Mortar?
That's totally what I said. That too. And pestle sat next to a few kettles, a thimble of cloth, and some fired clay cups.
Taking up apothecary too.
I'll show you. But let's get this thing out of the middle of the floor first. As some direction from Cal, she positioned the stove against the west wall, and after some figuring and fussing and cursing, he got the stovepipe affixed. The little cutting by brace drill and saw, and some arch comments from Viv. He fed the pipe out through the flange.
I knew, the minute I saw that word, I knew that would lose you.
Flange, where it met the wall. A few hours later, they had the end run up past the eaves and topped with a rain cap. Flange. They made do with some scrap for kindling and started a small blaze in the side box. The smoke drew up and out just fine. All right, said Viv. Get some water in one of those kettles and put it on.
Hal raised his eyebrows. Bean water?
That's what I call things too.
I don't even want to know what things you call bean water.
It's fine. You want to test the stove or not?
He shrugged and went about filling the kettle from the water barrel.
Viv dug out a handful of coffee beans from one of the sacks, crushed them in the
Mortar.
That too.
Pestle.
Yep, and poured the grounds into a tube of linen. She stretched the tube over the mouth of one of the clay cups, and when the kettle whistled, she slowly poured boiling water through a little at a time.
Is that a lady's stocking? Asked Cal.
Viv glanced at him. It's clean. I don't wear stockings.
Just asking, he said mildly.
She said. It seemed he was rubbing off on her.
How exactly are you planning to use that kettle with no stove? He asked pointedly.
Needed it to fill the machine that's coming, just a happy accident. Viv completed a last spiraling pour and waited for the swollen grounds to steep. Removing the linen sleeve and swirling the cup, she closed her eyes, brought it to her nose and inhaled deeply. She took an experimental taste and smiled, nodding. That's not half bad. Cal frowned at her. Now, she said defensively, this isn't as good as it'll be when I can make it right, but... She handed him the cup. He made a big show of sniffing at it. He raised his eyebrows and nodded a little. Very slowly and very delicately. He sipped at it, then he held it in his hand and stood there. After what Viv considered an overly generous few moments, she couldn't help herself. Well?
Said Cal. I'll allow. It's actually not that terrible.
Later, they sat at the big table with each of their own cup. Cal pretended to ignore his, but Viv caught him stealing cautious sips now and then, when he thought she wasn't looking. She held her own in both hands, contemplatively.
Yeah, what you said. Contemplatively.
Totes. Absorbing the heat and the scents, it felt like completing a loop, like the satisfying click of a clasp snapping closed. So, she said, you can also make these with milk. You might like it.
Milk? Cal made a face.
Better than it sounds. You'll have to try it once I have the machine. The gnomes call it a latte.
Latte? That means something.
Named after the gnomish barista who invented them, I think. Latte... Diameter. I was going to say something completely different.
Cal gave her a long-suffering look. Can't explain what one word means with another word nobody knows. What's a barista?
Cal, I didn't invent the words.
Folks gonna need new education just to buy some some coffee.
I don't know. I kind of like it. It's more exotic this way.
Ladies' stocking and exotic bean water. God help us.
Oh, there you go. It's not your turn. This is the last chapter, yeah? Last one. It's short. Short.
Chapter 5. The job board sat at the east end of the largest square in Thune. It was long and low, and beneath newer scraps of parchment or full scap, furred with the ragged flakes of 100 others. As Viv scanned the notices, she endured a weary onrush of memory. Beast hunts, bounties, and battles. She might have torn down 5 score of those sheets herself in one city or another. Knuckles blooded to claim her due for a job done. She'd even posted a few in her time. A hireling here, filling out a hunting party there. This one was nothing like the others. She spiked her notice on one of the many iron studs and read over what she'd written. Assistant wanted. Must be willing to learn. Management and food service experience desired. Advancement opportunities. Patience a plus. Wages commensurate. Inquire at the old livery on Redstone. Afternoon to dusk. It was a long shot, but the Scarlet Stone had not let her down yet. She returned to the shop, but found herself restless and pacing. She'd sent post for her most important delivery on her first day in the city, and while the coffee had shown up promptly, the other parcel had yet to arrive. With the shop repaired and cleaned, and nothing upon which to expand her nervous energy, she felt thwarted. After weeks of steady work, and with Cal absent, her hands itched with inactivity. At last, in exasperation, she gathered her notes into her satchel and hiked to the pub she'd visited on her first night in Thune. She sat at a table in the back, ordered a meal, and made increasingly irrelevant lists. When noon arrived, her meal remained half-eaten, and her nervous organizational efforts were in shambles. Please note the American spelling of the word organizational. So she laughed from her seat, paid, and stalked back to the shop to wait.
She lunged the seat.
Did I say that?
You said laughed.
Same difference.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, it's fine. It's gone midnight. Be quiet.
Yeah. Okay.
The idea that an applicant would arrive on the first day was, of course, ludicrous, but the Scarlet Stone, well, she either trusted its power or she didn't. And if she did, the Scarlet Stone of Fire draws the Ring of Fortune. Viv started a fire, boiled water, ground some beans, and made a cup of coffee, which she drank too quickly. Then she made another and another. As a result, she was nervier than ever and wished she'd written other instructions on the advertisement. Or that her probably misplaced faith in the power of the stone wasn't keeping her corralled there. Did she really believe it would deliver results so soon? Black blood hung ominously on the wall, and she found herself wanting to take it down to sharpen it and to lose herself in the repetitive, familiar action of it. But she forced her gaze away. She found herself annoyed that Carl had made her hang it up, and then angry at herself for blaming him. Since that was a stupid thing to think. Viv could have juggled the men one-handed. He'd hardly made her do anything. And then, in late mid-afternoon, there was a rap on the door, and it opened briskly. A woman strode in, glancing about in a way that was both cautious and confident. She was tall, not as tall as Viv, of course, with glossy black hair cut severely at chin length. She wore breeches and what looked like a sweater, dark and shapeless, with a collar that covered her throat. Her face was aristocratic, her eyes dark. Viv also noticed with surprise the short stubs of horns parting her hair, the haunt of dusty magenta in her skin, and her whipcord tail. The woman was clearly a succubus.
Oh, I thought it was a tiefling.
Yeah.
Oh, we've gone straight to succubus.
So that's the one that means to lie beneath, right?
Yeah.
According to Latin.
Is it, or is that incubus?
No, so incubus is from Latin incubi,
to be on
to lie
top.
above.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's to be beneath whatever it is, yeah.
So, Viv's head was already buzzing from her fourth cup of coffee. And then she started up from her seat. The woman slowly looked her up and down, but her expression didn't change. She glanced deliberately at Blackblood on the wall, and then back. "Assistant wanted," she said. It wasn't a question. Her voice was throaty, but she spoke precisely. That's right," replied Viv, and just stood there. The woman's eyebrows slowly rose, and she closed the door behind her. She held out a hand. "Tandri," she said. "Viv." She awkwardly returned the handshake, cursing herself for drinking so much coffee. "I'm sorry, I didn't expect anyone to actually show up on the first day," she said. Which was absolutely untrue, but seemed a good excuse for how scattered she probably appeared. I like to be prompt, said Tandri. Good, good. Viv tried to get hold of herself. She'd hired help before, sure. There'd been mercenaries and cut purses, but the principles were the same. Lay out the job, set forth the terms, get a feeling for whether they'd cut and run at an inconvenient moment, and then make the call. Easy. So I'm looking for an assistant. I guess that's clear from the notice. The job's, it's sort of, you ever hear of coffee? The succubus shook her head, her hair moving like a liquid curtain.
Ooh, I like this character.
I have not. Well, that's fine. Doesn't matter. Tea, though. You know tea. I'm opening this shop soon, kind of like a tea shop, but coffee. And can't run it all by myself. I need someone willing to learn the work. Take customers. Help with whatever needs doing. Probably some cleaning too. And they'd make coffee, as needed. After some instruction from me. I wrote food service experience in the notice. You have that. Tandri's expression didn't falter in the slightest. I do not. The succubus inclined her head at Viv. Do you? Viv's mouth hung open for a moment until she eventually managed, I do not. I am willing to learn. That was higher up on the notice, said the woman. That's true. Viv scratched the back of her head. Gods, this was so awkward. Advancement opportunities, it also said, prompted Tandri. What sort of opportunities? I did write that, didn't I? Well, I mean, if things went well, I guess it would depend on what your interests were. There was a very awkward pause. I didn't actually check how many pages this. Oh no, it's not as many pages.
I told you it wasn't.
Yeah, I should have checked. I was as trusting as she was with her money earlier. Viv wrestled with what she was about to say. She'd never been skilled at putting things delicately. It had never been particularly important up till now. Succubi had a reputation for certain biological imperatives. Were their needs and predilections even a choice? She forged onwards. You're a succubus, right? At the applied addendum to that question, Tandri's expression changed for the first time. A pinching of the lips, a tightening around the eyes. Her tail lashed behind her. I am, and you're an orc, running a not tea shop.
I love this character.
No judgment from me, Viv babbled, feeling on the precipice of a great mistake, but stumbled forward nevertheless. I only ask because... No, I have no desire to vamp your customers, if that's your question. Tandri's voice was icy. That wasn't what I was planning to say, said Viv. I would never assume that. I've just never worked with one of you, and I wasn't sure about your needs. Gods, this was agonizing. Her cheeks were aflame. Tandri closed her eyes and crossed her arms in front of her. Her cheeks were flushed as well. Viv was absolutely sure she was about to turn on her heel and leave. She sighed. I apologize. I am very bad at this. I don't really know what I'm doing. She hooked her thumb at the great sword on the wall. This is what I know, what I've always known. I just want to know something else now, to be something else. Everything I said was stupid. I, of all people, ought to know better than to assume anything based on what you were born as. Before you walk out, do you mind if I start over? Tandri took a slow breath, in through her nose, out through her mouth. There's no need to start over. Said Viv, disappointed. I understand. Why waste the time? We've covered most of the particulars, continued the succubus briskly. So, wages commensurate? Viv goggled at her for a moment, then stammered, 3 silver bits a week to start? 4 silver. Aye. Yes, that's fine. Acceptable. Then you want the job? I do. Tandri held out her hand again. Viv shook it in a daze. Well then, welcome aboard. Thanks. She'd set out to hire an assistant, but she had the overwhelming sense she'd just acquired a partner without meaning to. She couldn't help wondering who had interviewed whom. It's settled then, said Tandri. A pleasure to meet you, Viv. Then she turned and left, closing the door gently behind her. Patience a plus, Viv murmured. It took several minutes before she noticed that she hadn't even specified when the work would start, but somehow she wasn't worried about it. Viv went directly to the square and tore down her notice, which hadn't hung for more than 7 hours. She folded it and tucked it into a pocket, then returned to the shop where she wiped away the debris of her furtive bean grinding. Afterward, Viv went out and ate a heavy meal, coming home pleasantly warm and full. As she sat toying with the witching rod in the dining area, her gaze returned again and again to the place where the Scalvert stone rested. Later, staring at the ceiling from her bedroll, she thought about her impending delivery and the feeling of potential motion building inside her. All that remained was for the last obstruction to be kicked away. She heard a thud on the roof tiles. Heavy footfalls clattered noisily as something large tracked to the western wall. There was a pregnant pause, and then a thump. Viv quietly stole from her bedroll, descended the ladder, and paced the dark and quiet street, trying to see onto the roof before checking the alley to the west. But she found nothing. You okay there, Noah? You seem to have a bit of an issue there.
I did. I had a bit of a giggle fit. I'm a giggly bitch, apparently. Thoughts so far?
I was about to say the same thing to you. So, I would like a little bit more personality for Viv.
I was gonna say that. The thing is, though, it's like, oh, I'm a hard orc. I've fought things. I've done adventures for 20 years, and then it's like, all of a sudden, she's like a very nervous person. All of a sudden.
Well, if you think about it, though,
because of coffee.
From D&D terms, who do you not put in a situation to talk to people?
The barbarian.
Barbarian.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. So, ow. Oh. Just break the table.
That cat's here.
Yeah. Oh, buddy cat. Kitty. So that kind of makes sense. And overdosing on the caffeine and being so nervy makes complete sense. I just want to see a bit more. I suspect the problem is because it's the only sort of interaction you've had so far is with Calamity, of all names. And that's quite a business-like arrangement. That kind of makes sense.
You know what? Yeah.
So I do like, though, the descriptive work.
There's so much world building in this, which is lovely.
Yeah. I'm expecting to see more racism later on.
I mean, they hated the Hob. They don't like the Orc.
No. So I'd have a suspicion a succubi working in such a place may cause some comment.
I actually like her character.
Yes, from what we've seen so far.
She's the most one with a personality so far that we've seen.
Yes, and it's very obvious. Although, again, that would make sense because of the proclivities of such a character.
I genuinely thought she was a tiefling, though.
I mean, is tiefling a strictly D&D term, possibly? So it could be a copyright thing.
Yeah,
to be
that's
fair.
true, actually.
But no, it's all right.
I'm enjoying it so far.
It's all right. I mean, we're only 50 pages in.
It feels
After
so much
2
more,
hours.
though. It feels so much more. I'm not gonna lie.
It does. For
No, we're 57 pages in.
57. So we're about
57.
what, a sixth of the way through.
I would say we're about...
We're not a quarter of the way through.
No.
We're about a sixth.
I'd say a bit more than that. I'd say about 15% of the way through.
Okay.
Goodreads will tell us. 1 second.
So that's less than a sixth, just so you know.
Oh, is it? Oh, we're about a sixth of the way through. 1 second. Let me
Yeah.
just go to Goodreads. Let me see what it says. Because when I update it, it tells you the percentage and stuff like that.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's bright. That is so bright. Let me just put this to the side. That's really bright. Oh, I just covered us. There we go. Update. We're on page 57 of 308.
Yep. Which I'd assume is...
We are 19%.
Okay, I was going to say 18, so that's about
That's about right, yeah.
So,
Give me a moment then.
2, 4, 6, 8. So in another 10 hours,
We'll have
streaming
read it
this,
all.
we'll finish it. Yeah.
The question is, when are we going to do the next bit? Next couple of chapters?
That is completely up to you.
And how many chapters are we reading per one?
Well, you just seem to have got it so that I read the long ones.
Well, no, I did a long one just before. That was a moment.
By you did a long one, what you mean is you then said, by the way, you're taking part in this.
Yeah, which I will take part in yours as well.
Okay.
So we'll do... I found it more fun when we were doing the voices. Like,
okay, I need to spend some time practicing some of my...
No, you did really well.
My Welsh is a little bit...
I'll do the old lady. I can do old lady voice.
Yes, yeah. Don't, she can't talk like Gwen.
No! No, that's what the succubus is. That's what's she called again? It did. Tandri. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's going to confuse me because Tandy is a character from Fallout.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Because she was the one who, pointless and totally irrelevant side point here, was the one that helped found the New California Republic in Fallout.
Oh, okay.
So in Shady Sands. There you go. Geek
All
moment.
right, then.
Unsurprisingly for me.
I'm also going to be putting this on the BookTube channel. I'm going to edit a little bit and I'll be uploading it as well, by the way.
I will not be putting it on the BookTube channel.
I will.
So that's fine. It won't go up until September if you're doing it anyway. So
No, I'm going to have it up by tomorrow.
Okay.
I just need to cut out some little bits, like
Yeah.
some tiny little bits, but there's really not much to do onto it, so it should be fun.
Yeah. Oh. Well,
that was fun.
Is that
Thank
it?
you for joining me.
it's okay. I was good. I did not do voice much,
Well,
but
maybe want to flush.
I hope everyone enjoyed.
I think they did. It was fun. Thank you for doing this with me.
It's okay. I mean, we should have started this in December.
Yeah. Milo, why? But yeah, that's my fault though.
No, it's not. It's fine.
Thank you.
Life is a thing.
Thanks, Jen.
So, we hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry it wasn't the ASMR stream like we promised.
I'm kind of glad it wasn't, to be honest.
We're going to save the ASMR stream, and we're going to do that for some of the more spicy titles, I think.
What kind of spicy titles are we talking about?
Well, you've got The Crow to read, and you've got The Beast
shit!
to finish.
Well, can you not do The Crow with me?
Hell no.
Oh.
I read the synopsis for that before I sent it to
Oh,
you.
did you?
Not a cat in hell's chance.
Oh, sad me.
So, sorry. I mean, we could always read Hook. Not Hook. What's it called? The other one that I found months ago.
Oh, there's many.
There's
many.
Well, yes, there is. I think I've still got that downloaded, actually.
Oh, really? I've been reading a book, and
you haven't told me what it is.
It's really bad,
Okay.
but it's not. It's not like it's not smart.
Okay. So what is it?
It's called Cougar Boss.
Okay. How?
It's
How have
fucking
you come across
terrible.
this?
I just don't even know, man. It just appeared and I was like, oh, well, all right. Shut up, Jen. It's not what you think, though. It's not what you think.
It probably is.
It's not. The main person, it's... I don't even know what the main person's called. I think I read, like, 20 pages, and I was like, this is shit.
Far from Neverland.
Oh, is this the,
It's the Captain... Well, I said the Captain Hook one.
Mm.
Yes, 14 years after they've left Neverland.
Ooh. It's exactly what we're thinking. Jen, you're
Oh,
supposed to
Jesus.
be innocent.
It's 300 pages.
Oof, we've already got this big book, and this is nearly 400.
Oh, good God.
We're
that's
only
big, isn't it?
19% of the way through.
That's fine. I've got through that faster than I got through the first 20% of Bloody Hunger, so... I mean, there's How to Bite Your Neighbour and Win a Wager. That's one...
There's
oh, no,
nothing
that's
wrong
even-
with biting.
That's actually an even bigger book. Maybe not. Maybe not. But yeah, I'm sure we can find something to ASMR read at some point.
Yeah.
So, but thank you. I'm going to go now, and I'm going to go to sleep because my children are going to wake me up at dumb o'clock in the morning.
I will not go to sleep because I am wide awake. So I'm going to read another book.
I've had coffee, so I'm probably going to spend some time trying to read Hunger.
You have
Again.
fun with that.
I'm trying to. It's not happening. It's not.
I'll book Jen. She's awake. No, I wouldn't. I would never.
Yes, you would.
I mean, yeah, but Jen's cool to talk to. We talked about books today and plants and music.
Plants. Ooh.
She's got cacti.
Yeah, I have cacti.
Yeah, does the spines come out? Because did I tell you about my ex's uncle? He accidentally touched one and the spines got into his hand, so as an idiot he went to like pull them out with his mouth and he got them in his tongue. We had to tweezer them out.
Was it you that had the issues in work getting the cacti out?
Yeah, when we got them and I was too scared to pull them out and put them out, so I was just kind of like faffing with the box.
And I just came up and went, zinc.
Yeah, but then when you did it, they were tipping out and you were like, so I was like,
Yeah, it was fine.
So we were both panicking.
I only got slightly stabbed.
No, oh, Jen's gonna go to sleep. Okay. That's because you're a responsible adult. No, Venus flytraps are lovely because there's different kinds and they're all pretty.
But they die too easily.
Well, sometimes, but then I'm just like, feed me Seymour, feed me all night long. I always name them Audrey too.
So, do you do that to plants, or is that what you do when you go out on a night out when you're trying to find people?
No, when I try to find people, I go up to them and I go, "Do you want to hear a joke?" And they're like, or a joke / pickup line because they're really that bad. And they're like, "What is it?" And I go, "I don't know much about dessert, but you make my banana cream." And then I back away, never to be seen again because it's really embarrassing. And this is why I'm single.
And on that note,
let's go.
Say good night.
Yep.
Thank you all. We'll possibly do this at some point in the next 6 months.
I think we should do it every other week. So when we have like a bit of free time before another.
I have plenty of free time.
Do you like that, Jen? Do you like that?
I mean, it's not the worst thing I've ever heard, but
it's terrible.
I mean, to be fair, I've got a better one that would suit you anyway, Noah, that would work just for you.
I've got one for you as well.
This is one that only work for you, though.
Okay, go on.
For you saying it.
Go on.
Do you like biscuits? Because you make this ginger nut.
Okay, first of all, that is really good. But second of all, I'm not ginger. I've got one for you.
Oh, no.
Are you dead? Do you give me the necrophiles? Oh.
Good night, everybody.
Yep. Bye.
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 You need to hit the end button.
I do. I'm gonna end this now. Let's just.
Even the dog's looking at you disappointed.
He's very disappointed. I'm disappointed too.